For Gotan-e, it's customary to reflect on Shinran Shonin's life. So today I would like to talk about Shinran Shonin's names. We learned that Shinran had 7 names during his lifetime, and each name marked a significant part of his spiritual path, a different identity for him. His name given to him at birth was Matsuwakamaru. His parents named him after the pine tree because this tree is always fresh and green. In some cultures, a pine tree also means wisdom and longevity. After the death of his mother and father, Shinran was being raised by his uncle, but due to the difficulty of so much loss, Shinran wanted to enter a monastery at the age of 9. They arrived late at night, and the head priest wanted to wait until the morning. Disappointed at the need to wait, Shinran recited a poem expressing the difficulty and unreliability of life. So this is the poem that Shinran recited, a version of the poem Shinran recited. The heart that thinks to leave it till the morrow is like the fragile cherry blossoms hanging on the limb. Who knows whether a storm might visit during the night and scatter them to the winds? He understood the fragile nature of life, and like the cherry blossoms, who knows what will happen tomorrow? And I don't know about you, but when I was 9, I could barely walk and chew gum at the same time, let alone compose a poem like that. But the poem deeply moved the head priest, and he was immediately ordained and given the name Hannen. So that's name number 2, right? So he was disappointed in the progress he was making on Mount Hiei, and at the age of 29 decided to come down from the mountain and dedicate his life to Honen Shonin in the Nembutsu practice. The legacy garden outside of our temple depicts this act of him coming down from the mountain. As a disciple of Honen, he received the name Shaku. That's name number 3. And he was later given a second priest name by Honen of Zenshin. So that's name number 4. As the Nembutsu teaching of Honen and Shinran gained popularity, they attracted opposition amongst the Buddhist establishment and were exiled due to the radical nature of what they were promoting. Shinran was disrobed and was given a secular name by the government, Fuji Yoshizane. Honen and Shinran were exiled to remote and separate areas of the country. So while in exile, he gave himself the name Gutoku Shaku Shinran. So that's name number 6, which means foolish, stubble-haired Shinran, disciple of Shakyamuni Buddha. It reflects his deep humility and self-awareness. He felt he was neither a monk nor a layperson. He chose the name Shinran because it comes from a combination of 2 of the Pure Land masters he identified as being important in the Nembutsu tradition. So the Tenjin, which was Vasubandhu, and Donran or Tamlan. So he realized his true self, he realized his true humanity, and he gave himself his true name. Through his name, he reveals to us we can realize our true lives. 600 years after Shinran's death, he was given the name Kenshin Daishi. That's name number 7, the last name, which means great master, seer of truth, and it was given to him by the Japanese emperor. 7 names might sound like a lot, but if we look at ourselves, we all have many names given to us. There's a famous quote in Shakespeare's play Romeo and Juliet. It goes, "What's in a name? That which we call a rose by any other name would smell as sweet." So this quote to me means that a name is just a label, and that what matters is the essence of the person. Most of us have a first name, middle name, last name, nickname, names that identify your relationships like brother, sister, uncle, aunt, dad, mom, grandma, grandpa, Bachan, Jichan. I looked up the most popular names for boys in 2024, and one of them is Liam. Is Liam here? Oh, bummer. Isn't he even downstairs? No? Okay. Don't tell him that, because it'll go to his head. In Buddhism, we often talk about no self, and that is the idea that we don't have a permanent, unchanging self. And that doesn't mean we don't exist. Of course we do. In Jodo Shinshu, we think of no self in terms of who I am is because of you. And that is why we have so many names. We are known because of our relationships. So what do each of your names represent to you? You know, our first names were given to us by our parents. In a sense, it embodies their hopes and dreams for us. Our last names are our family names that can be difficult to live up to. Our names can also influence the decisions we make in our lives. They are important reminders of your life. They represent the connections you have with others. When you hear your different names called out to you, since we can usually recognize the voices of those we are closely connected to, it brings up feelings for you. When we hear our name called by others we are closely connected to, we feel comforted, reassured, and happy to know they are there for you. When you were a child, did you ever get lost in a store and panicked when you couldn't find your parent? When you recognized their voice, you knew you were not alone. You become calmer. But what if we had no name? We might lose our identity, our uniqueness, and our sense of self. We lose our connection to others. Shinran reminds us that Amida is calling out to us all the time. Amida is calling us to the world of wisdom. It means we are receiving the Buddha's wisdom, understanding that we are part of something bigger and that we are loved. We are not alone and we are enough. Because of this, we can become calmer. You know, Amida Buddha has another name, Namo Amida Butsu. So when we gasho and say Namo Amida Butsu, we are calling out Amida Buddha's name in response to the kindness of the Buddha. When we say Namo Amida Butsu, we are thinking of the Buddha. And you know, that's what the Nembutsu means. Nen means to think on, and Butsu is the Buddha. So it helps me to think of Buddha not as an object, but as activity. It is Buddha activity that helps me give me clarity in my life. By reciting Namo Amida Butsu, we are being thankful for our parents, for our grandparents, our family, and our friends, for being part of our lives. We are also thankful for all the things that have made our lives what it is today. You know, Shinran's teachings help us to focus on our appreciation instead of fear, embrace compassion and respect toward others instead of anger and hatred, to act with generosity in our hearts instead of selfishness. And as we celebrate Shinran Shonin's birthday, we are reminded that Amida's calling voice helps me to tap into true reality. It can help us think about how we can share the Dharma, share Buddha's wisdom, contribute to solutions, how we live a life of Nembutsu. So I'd like to close by reading a passage from the Jusei Ge that we just chanted earlier this morning. It explains the 17th vow of Amida Buddha and the Nembutsu practice. So please join me in Gasho. When I have fulfilled the Buddha way, my name shall pervade the 10 quarters. Should there be any place it is not heard, may I not attain perfect enlightenment. Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you for listening.